This is just about the easiest type of review to make. An update to a beloved watch that's arguably made it even better. Not in the way I expected, or perhaps hoped for, but the results are so good you won't want to miss it. So here's the starting point, the Casio A700. This digital watch was introduced a few years ago by Casio, and based on the view counts for those reviews, it proved pretty darn popular to say the least. This popularity was driven by one key factor: slimness. You see, while the classic Casio digital models are all pretty small, the A700 was the first to take things to the extreme, at least from side on. Indeed, it boasted a game-changing 6mm thickness, which gave an undeniably sleek appearance and a fit that's as flush to the arm as a watch can get. It also shipped with a slightly better selection of bracelets, a mineral crystal instead of acrylic, and a decent nightlight, all for a price that was still very reasonable. I think for most people, it pretty much made the older offerings obsolete, and I think it's held its crown as the best looking digital ever since, at least out of those that don't cost the earth. To be honest, with Casio firing out super expensive special edition watches like the Casio Tron reissue for $500, I didn't expect to see an update for the A700 line anytime soon. However, I was thankfully mistaken. They've released two newer models under the A700 WEV codename, each of which looks incredible from the stock images. Unfortunately, neither of these incorporate the steel case and higher water resistance I was hoping for. Yet they still managed to tempt me into purchasing. I'll link both of these watches in the video description, by the way, if you want to check them out. One of the reasons I liked the original A700 watches was because they were a little more subtle. They traded some of the retro charm for a more refined look, and this new version appeared to crank this up to 11 with a futuristic, super minimalist appearance that I never expected to see from Casio. Dare I say it, it looked like a better version of the highly divisive PRX digital from Tissot, at least visually. So, is it as good in person? Yes. It's actually better in person. From a specification standpoint, it's identical to before. It carries over the fan favorite sizing you can see on screen. Just note, because it's square, it doesn't wear nearly that small, and is again powered by the trusty 3472 module. The most meaningful changes are all up front. The new A700 WEV has had a massive facelift, and unlike most celebrity facelifts, I think this one has actually made it look better. Gone are the numerous rows of descriptive text, and in its place, we're left with a dramatically sharp, minimalist design that oozes chicness and precision. Unlike the original A700, all the text, including the logo, sits with a perfect central alignment, maximizing symmetry and reducing unnecessary distractions. I was absolutely blown away when I unboxed these. The real star of the show is the gorgeous reflectivity of the display surround. Admittedly, at steep angles, it does disguise some of the delicately presented text. However, the mirror-like surface provides a sheen that imbues this watch with a sense of class it simply shouldn't be capable of. It looks phenomenal, both on the wrist and in the hands. Does this look like an expensive watch? No, I wouldn't quite say that, but it looks like a darn cool one. Despite the heavily simplified presentation, it still boasts a retro charm of sorts, only from a slightly different perspective. To me, this feels like a fun and highly palatable design that pays homage to a slightly earlier epoch, given the confident, high-shine aesthetic that gives me a hint of those disco vibes. Despite the boosted flashiness, the visibility of the display beneath remains unhindered, and it still has the same great low light system, which can be activated via the top left pusher. Of course, you will have to remember what buttons do what with this A700, as the instructions are no longer printed on the front of the watch. That said, if you can remember your ABC, you'll have no problem using these functions. The bottom left button cycles you through the modes, such as the alarm and stopwatch, while you use the bottom right pusher to make all your adjustments. That's it, easy squeezy. Each of these are as comfortable as the original on the arm too, and I think the silver in particular is an absolute stunner. You can feasibly wear this with just about everything. I heard commenters online saying that the previous A700 was already semi-viable with a suit. I'd say this version makes an even better case for that. This could be the dressiest digital I've ever seen. Aside from it being rather predictably a fingerprint magnet, the only issue of note surrounds the bracelet. Both of these models ship with the same bracelet as one of the previous A700 watches. There are no mesh bracelets to pick from this time, which is a shame. Visually, I think this style of bracelet best suits this design anyway, as the links coincide with the engraved line present on the hooded lugs. Still, the brush bracelet doesn't match the chrome case very well, And while a step up from the cheapest Casio digitals, the construction still is far from great, with folded links that have a tendency to occasionally pluck hairs. The slide rail adjustment system is reasonable, but doesn't permit the same fine-tuning as the old mesh option. Additionally, the gold version, despite retailing for slightly more, has a buckle whose sides and back are silver for some reason. It must have been cheaper to produce that way. Despite all this, you can currently buy these watches for a starting price of below $50 at the time of writing, or below 50 quid in the UK, which will undoubtedly decrease in the long run, as these are among the most readily available watches on grey market sites typically. As a result, these are simply the digital watches to buy if you're after something stylish and snazzy on a Casio budget. I suspect that one or two of you will probably think that this design looks a little bit boring with all the reduced text and that, and I can totally understand that, but I definitely urge you to go and take a look at these in a store if you have the opportunity. They really do have that special sauce. In essence, the A700 WEV feels like the digital watch for people who don't normally like digital watches. If you've never tried one before, you'll struggle to find one as fun and sexy as this for so few pennies. It's linked below, so yeah, go ahead, go wild. Now, if only we could have this watch with a steel case, more water resistance, and a better bracelet and crystal. If it were under $150, maybe $200, we'd be in all-time great territory. You may be surprised to learn that Casio already released a steel digital for around $150. And that one was great looking too. You can check out the video on screen now to see exactly what I thought of it. Is it a viable alternative to this A700?